Hi, and welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist and health and wellness expert. As always, behind the scenes, producer Mike, and across from me, Janet Miller. Glad to have both of y'all and glad to have everybody that's listening.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you. And good morning, Billy.
Morning.
And today I want to do another Ask Billy Anything podcast.
All right, let's do it.
And these are kind of fun, you guys, because Billy is not prepped. He does not know what I'm going to ask him. And I guess most of your information is coming right out of your head.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just want to, this one might be an easy one for you, but it's come up a lot. So you're a pharmacist.
Yes.
You must know lots about drugs.
Hopefully I know something about drugs. Yes.
You're not the one that prescribes them, but when the doctor prescribes and sends you the prescription and you look at the drugs, there are so many side effects. And when we look at commercials, oh my goodness, as a professional choreographer in my past life, I would love to get hired for one of these pharmaceutical commercials where you have all these people dancing and singing, and it just looks like the greatest thing if you take this drug. But then when they list the side effects, they speed it up. You can hardly hear it. You can barely see what they're saying. And some of them just sound awful. And they seem to all end in or death. So talk to us a little bit about what are some of the common medications that people take and what are some of these side effects? How many side effects? Go.
Okay. Janet, yeah, this could be a long answer because there are so many side effects. So one thing is that I hope will again be ended by the new Health and Human Services Secretary is direct to consumer pharmaceutical advertising.
What? Wait, what's that?
I think we're the only country that allows drug companies to make commercials directly to the consumer.
And
TV
and
commercials,
like every
and radio
commercial.
commercials. Well, yeah, that says you need this drug.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have to go to your doctor and say, hey, I think I need that Skyrizi or that Ozempic or that Wegovy or that, whatever.
Because you think you're deficient in that drug.
Yeah. And so, we put it in people's heads that they need these things, number one. And then number two, the pharmaceutical companies are going to the doctors and saying, you need to give this to these people, right?
Right.
And they throw out these studies that are probably completely invalid when you actually
They're
dig
manipulated.
into them.
The science is manipulated.
Yeah, they kick out the people that don't meet the standards of what they want. You'll see that in so many of these drug company studies. They started with 1,500 people and they ended with 1,100. And so they have what's called and this is after they have what's so-called a washout period. So they'll start the study before they officially start the study, and they'll give people the drug for a time period. And some will have an adverse reaction, and so they kick them out of the study before the study ever starts.
Interesting.
So they have what's called a washout period. Okay. Now you have 1,500 left, and by the end you have 1,100 left, and they've kicked some of them out because they won't make the standard of making it an efficient drug to get FDA approval.
That should be illegal.
Which they're paying the FDA for the approval.
Right.
So 75% of the FDA's budget comes from the very companies that are trying to get these drugs approved. So I say all that to say that hopefully direct-to-consumer ads will go away. Hopefully the fact that the drug companies pay the FDA, who then has to approve or disapprove their drug, and most of the people on the panel then either own stocks in those drug companies, so they have a vested interest in that, or a vast majority of them either used to work in the drug companies and went to the FDA, or go from the FDA to work in the drug companies. So we need to stop all this interchange of information and things. So
it's literally killing us.
I really believe that, yes, we are literally killing people by doing standard of care things that are probably not what's best, right, for the average person.
So what are some of the most common drugs that you see, and what are those side effects? And can you also tell us, you always talk about 398 side effects.
Yeah, so before people go off the deep end and say, hey, they just said that these drugs are killing people. That is studied. Okay, that is not me and you just throwing out stuff here just off the top of our head. Over 106,000 people year after year after year die from properly prescribed prescription drugs.
Properly.
Some years it's up to 128,000.
Wow.
So I want you to think about that. If the studies show that between 106,000 and 128,000 Americans die every year from properly prescribed prescription drugs, not the doctor made a mistake, not the pharmacist made a mistake. Now, I want you to imagine for just 1 minute if 106,000 people were killed a year in a plane crash, or if 106,000 people a year were killed in a war.
Mm-hmm.
We would hear nothing else, but we
Mm-hmm.
never hear anybody talking about it. So we have this massive amount of people that die from properly prescribed prescription drugs. So we're not just saying that, it is true. These drugs have a package insert in them, okay? And that is what the doctor, the pharmacist, the nurse has access to, that tells how the drug works, all the details of the drug, all the side effects, all the mechanisms of action, they're called, all these different things, okay? So that on average lists 69 side effects.
The package insert.
The package insert. So the drug companies on average admit up front that there's an average of 69
That's a
things that
lot
can go
of
wrong.
side effects.
It's a huge amount. And that's what you hear are the most common ones typically in these drug commercials. So you'll hear things like liver failure, kidney failure, tears in the perineum, sudden death, so
Heart attack,
69.
stroke. Yeah.
Yeah, 69 side effects listed by the drug company on average that they know can go wrong.
Now, is that in the package insert that the consumer gets as well?
No.
Oh, we don't
This
even
is
get that.
different. This is
Okay.
completely different than what a consumer would get
Okay.
with their prescription. That's going to be way, way toned down.
Okay.
Okay, with way less information. So it's completely different than what the consumers get. They're going to get the top, 5
or
to
6.
10, max. They're not going to get the whole 69. Now, the really sad part of this is 69, we say is, that's a big number of side effects. That is the good news in this story, is what I tell people, right? Because the University of Stanford School of Medicine, so I want everybody to hear me on this. This is not the University of Anti-Medicine at Stanford. This is the University School of Medicine at Stanford University in California that says that the average prescription drug, you can take the 69 that is listed in the package insert, and you can add 329 side effects that they find in the average prescription drug for a total of 398 side effects per one drug.
Whew.
So here's what I always tell people. If you continue to read, if you're on more than one drug, which the average
Most people
senior's
are.
on 7 to 8, 50% of Americans take a prescription drug every day, 50% of adults. At least 50% of adults take a prescription drug every day with an average of 398 side effects. But if you're on more than one drug, it's exponential. We don't know how many side effects because there's no studies done on taking Lipitor with valsartan or omeprazole with metoprolol. I mean, we just don't do those studies because it's two different companies. Nobody's going to pay for that kind of study, right? So this is a real tragedy, Janet, because you think about it, before 1970s, 1980s, we really had very few people who took a drug daily. Now we have 50% of American adults or more take a prescription drug every day, and the number of children are growing taking drugs every day. And our life expectancies continue to decline.
Right. So we're not trending in the right direction.
We're spending the most money on healthcare, and a lot of it on prescription drugs.
And aren't we the number 66 in the world?
I think we're actually less than that, higher than that now, worse than that now. I think it might be 72nd, but somewhere in the 60s or 70s. So there's,
as far as
we'll call it 60 to 70 other countries that live longer than we do and spend way, way less on what we call healthcare, which is just sick care.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that, that the fact that we're using all these, I'll call them dangerous, and often many cases drugs, for so-called conditions that are all lifestyle related. We bring it on ourselves, unfortunately. And we may, and I'm not being critical of people that have these things, but they may be doing what the so-called experts tell them to do.
And these so-called
Right.
experts, we trust. Everybody, wants to listen to their doctor. I had a situation where I had to be in the ER one day and get a CT scan, and they wanted to immediately give me fluids. Well, I said, I'm not dehydrated. Well,
Right.
we're going to we give everybody fluids.
Standard of care, Jen.
Standard of care. And then the nurse came in with 3 more vials, and she was going to push those into to my arm. And I said, stop. I said, wait a minute. And I did this because of what I've learned from you. I said, what else are you giving me? And she's like, well, you said you have a little headache, so we're going to give you something for the headache. We're going to give you something for nausea, just in case, and then something for dizziness and something else. And she named the drugs, and I said, I don't want any of those, and I don't feel like I need any of those. And then she was like, oh, no problem. We don't have to give you those. But normally they would just give them to you anyway.
Well, Janet, I can tell you why. It's really sad. It's the standard of care, and it runs the bill up.
Yeah.
It's really sad because
They make more money.
we had a very similar situation when our youngest son impaled himself on a fence. He was being Spider-Man at a young age.
I could see
He's a
that.
gymnast, and so
Yeah.
he was up on this fence, and he actually impaled his leg through the fence post,
Ouch.
a metal fence post. And
Tetanus shot.
we go in, and they want to immediately give him pain pills.
Mm.
And my wife Beth was like, "Oh my gosh, well,
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Beth, I'll take care of this. Don't you worry." I said, "Does he look like he's in pain?" He wasn't in pain.
He wasn't even in pain.
He was
by
just
then.
mad at
Yeah.
himself. He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm so stupid,"
Did
like
he have to get
was-
stitches or something?
Well, he had to have they had to do surgery to get
Oh,
it
wow.
out. But the point was, he didn't need pain pills. It's just standard of care, right? And so they would just run the bill up. Now,
Mhm.
we, like you, refused all those things. But there are so many of those instances. Like, for example, I know hospital systems that every single patient that's admitted gets omeprazole for reflux. And I'm like, so I know these pharmacists that work there, they're filling these scripts. And I'm like, well, what if they don't have reflux? They're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they have reflux. They get omeprazole. 100% of the patients in that hospital are getting omeprazole.
Well, let's talk about
Now,
omeprazole. What's the side effect?
Is it safe? Well, the drug companies say never use it more than 12 weeks. The companies that make it say
No, is that
don't use
on
it.
our package? Is it going to say
No,
that?
no.
Wow.
That's again in the package insert.
So the doctor should be telling you don't use this for more than 12 weeks.
Well, should be, but is not. I can tell you
And
for sure.
omeprazole is like a Prilosec, like a purple pill.
Yeah, it's the
same
purple
thing?
pill for stomach,
Okay.
for reflux or
Reflux.
heartburn.
Okay.
Larry the Cable Guy, the health expert, tells us that we need it if you watch the
And
commercials.
kids take that too, don't they?
Oh, we do it. We see infants,
Oof.
which is crazy because now you're blocking your body's ability to metabolize and digest the food.
Wow.
So those drugs are super dangerous because they create a lack of minerals and nutrients in the body. So the body can't break down and get the calcium, the phosphorus, the zinc, the vitamin D, the magnesium out of the foods and things that we're taking in. So we have this situation where these drugs over time lead to bone loss. They lead to more kidney disease. They lead to more heart disease. But now you can buy those with or without a prescription.
gonna say,
because
they're
the
over the
FDA
counter.
tells us how safe they are.
Ugh.
So people are on them forever. And all we need to do, the really sad part of this story is, if they will use the OptiU probiotics and digestive enzymes that I created, 99.9% of the people will never need that drug again.
And we have some good case studies around here and
Oh.
lots of testimonials where
And
that's
Janet,
already happened.
And there's only benefits to that.
Mm.
There are no 398 side
Side
effects.
effects.
There are benefits to our immune system, to our bones, to our heart, to our brain, to our kidneys, to our lungs, to, you go through the list and you go, why would I take a drug like this? There are tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of Americans who take a so-called proton pump inhibitor or purple pill like omeprazole every day. And many of them, and some of these people because you've sent them to me, have been on them for decades. They're not supposed to ever be on them for more than 12 weeks. They've been on them for decades.
The doctor,
They just don't.
they don't know.
The drug company doesn't come in and say, hey, doc, use this for 12 weeks and get them off. They say, this will stop their heartburn. And that's the way they leave it. And they say, here's a study that was manipulated. and you need to give this drug to every person who comes through the door.
And these doctors have wonderful intentions, and they're doing what they're told or what they think is the best for us, I think. And
I think in a lot of cases,
know.
Janet, the problem is they are completely blind to look outside the box.
Yeah.
They just will not.
And the system is set up so that they can't look outside the box, right?
They keep them on this insurance system where they have to see a patient every 2 or 3 minutes. They can't spend time with the patient. If they don't see so many, the hospital system will fire them. They have to order procedures. They have to give IVs when they come in the emergency room, right? They have to give the pain pills, the migraine pills, the nausea pills. They have to do all these things, or the shots even, so that they can charge, so that we can run the bill up. And it's really sad to say, but I think that's what standard of care is based off of, is how do we run the bills up? And how do we get people on omeprazole for decades? And how do we keep them to be I'll call it an annuity to the drug companies, right? Instead of a system where we're incentivizing health, we're incentivizing sickness and drugs.
Well, I think that if people do get a prescription, and I always tell them to send them to your pharmacy, because I know if there's something I'm prescribed, I'm probably not going to take it. But if I had to, you're going to tell me what the side effects are, and then you're going to help me battle that with the right nutrition or the right supplements, and to get off of whatever that medication is as soon as possible. So what are some more, besides proton pump inhibitors, what are some of the other common drugs that...
Let's just stay there for a minute, Janet. Okay. So what you're talking about is what I think that I am really, really good at, is drug nutrient depletions.
Drug nutrient depletions.
Every single prescription or over-the-counter drug depletes nutrients from our system. So a lot of those side effects are because now we are lower in those vitamins and minerals, those nutrients.
And it messes with our hormones, too.
It can absolutely mess with our hormones and our ability to produce hormones.
And our immune system.
So we need to at least replace what those drugs are depleting, right? That should be simple. That should be standard of care. But it's not taught in pharmacy schools, not taught in medical schools, not taught in nursing schools, so nobody knows. And they'll say, well, we don't know anything about that. Don't do that. And
the one you do hear about, though, is like if you're on antibiotics, then people know you need to replace your probiotics. And that one's kind of common.
I don't think that many people really know that, Janet, that 70% of people who take antibiotics have antibiotic-induced diarrhea, and that they could simply avoid 100% of that with a good quality probiotic like the OptiU probiotic. I don't think it's that common, honestly, seeing what I do every day.
But people don't realize antibiotics.
Okay,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, they don't realize they're destroying their own immune system.
Yeah.
If they don't put the probiotic back in. So like omeprazole, though, Janet. So now we can deplete up to 50% of our magnesium, 350 positive functions in the body. Number one vitamin deficiency in America.
Magnesium.
We can deplete up to 50% of our vitamin D.
That's our immune system.
There goes our immune system, our bones. We can deplete up to 50% of our calcium. So we continue to go down this list just with a so-called safe by the FDA, because you can buy them without a prescription. Larry the Cable Guy can tell you to get them. And so we have these drugs available, prescription, non-prescription, that are depleting all these vitamins and minerals that nobody's talking to them about replacing. Now, those are really common drugs that we think of as being safe. That's the sad part. We think omeprazole, Prilosec, Prevacid, all these things are safe. Nexium, safe. They're not. They're not safe. They're not safe long term. They're meant to be used short term. But again, with probiotics and enzymes that are quality, you never need them to begin with. Then we go on to things that are even more, I think, problematic, like, say, statin drugs that hundreds of millions of Americans are on.
Everybody's on a statin, and they wanted to give me statins also.
Of course they did. It's standard of care.
Yeah.
So you think about a statin drug and the fact that it blocks our body's ability to make energy efficiently. So now our body's ability to make energy starts to go down. So it increases rates of diabetes. It increases rates of obesity. It increases fatigue. It increases muscle cramps. It increases restless legs. I mean, we can go through this big, long list, right? And so I do educate people on these things, and we can try to offset that if you're going to be on a statin drug, again, by replacing the vitamins and minerals that it depletes. Statin drugs can deplete vitamin D up to 50%, magnesium up to 50%. I mean, we keep going through this list, right?
Who needs a statin?
Important.
Who needs a statin?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So women have zero benefit ever from a statin in any study, okay?
Not
so
a single woman needs a statin.
At any age. Number two, the only people that have ever shown benefit from a statin is a middle-aged male that has had a previous heart attack. So they've already had a heart attack. 1% of those people will have a benefit. So if you're asking me who needs a statin, the answer is probably no one. But if you look at their own studies, 1% of middle-aged men who've already had a heart attack event would be the answer.
And they're giving them to everybody.
And it's like candy, today almost. So we need to think about these things and the ramifications of being on these kind of drugs when they are, again, cholesterol is the building block for all our hormones. Cholesterol is an antioxidant. Cholesterol is made in every cell in our body. Cholesterol is how we make new brain cells.
We need cholesterol. We need good fat.
We do. We need good fat. We don't need seed oil fat. We don't need omega-6 fats that are from
omega-3s
from factories made. We need omega-3s, yeah. So
what about people who have to take something for osteopenia, osteoporosis for their bones? What's that?
Janet,
what's that one called?
Please don't get me started on these drugs.
Well, I've got friends that are on them, so help.
These are called bisphosphonates. Now, these drugs actually, let's just go back to the 1980s for a minute. These drugs, if you think of the game Pac-Man, okay? Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man would go around.
That was my game.
Yeah, I loved it. They would go around and eat little dots, right? So we have cells in our body that are Pac-Man, okay, or Miss Pac-Man.
Miss Pac-Man.
And those cells go around and eat up old bone that needs to be replaced. So Pac-Man goes and says, it gets a signal from a hormone called, two hormones actually, called estradiol and progesterone. And it says, go take care of this bone in Billy or Janet's arm.
You mean like clean it up?
It cleans up weak, old, brittle bone. Okay. So Pac-Man goes and does his job. And then we have a rebuilder, we'll call it a remodeler, that comes in and we rebuild that bone back in wherever areas stronger. So we replace our skeleton, our entire skeleton, about every 7 years. If we're not on one of those drugs.
So if we're on one of those drugs,
Fosamax, Boniva, they're now shots you can take, for it. They kill Pac-Man or they kill Miss Pac-Man. So the reason that those drugs actually are ineffective and create more, if you read their own studies, they can lead to more hip fractures.
And you hear that on TV.
You'll hear that on the commercial, can lead to more hip fractures.
And something about the jaw, too.
Osteonecrosis of the jaw.
What's that mean?
That means that the bone in the jaw is being deteriorated. So I always ask people, so they want you to believe that these drugs are actually making your bone stronger everywhere except your hips and your jaw. I mean, like they can distinguish and make it weaker in the hips and the jaw, but it's going to make every other bone stronger. And the whole reason that most people are on a drug like that is to prevent a hip fracture.
Because a hip fracture
and it creates more hip fractures.
Yeah.
Because now you've killed Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man. And so now your remodeler still works. So you're building new bone on top of old brittle bone.
Oh.
So you have a bone density test that measures the size of the bone. And it looks better because the bones have gotten bigger. What we need to be measuring is bone mineral density, the strength of the bone.
Not the size of the bone. So we don't
necessarily need big bones. We need strong bones.
It's kind of like a big, huge tree that looks really healthy, and then it topples over.
It doesn't have any leaves in June, right? It's big. The density of it is big, but it has no strength. Whereas a pine tree, right, can be really small, but it's got all that sap and strength in it. And so the wind blows and it just blows over and pops right back up, right? It'll bend over and pop up. So that's what we want.
Is there a short-term benefit to taking any of this stuff? Just don't take it at all?
It can lead to bone cancer if you think that's a good benefit.
Wow.
It can lead to all these issues in the gut. Again, Janet, I don't understand the philosophy of taking something from my bones that creates more hip fractures and osteonecrosis of the jaw. Now I know and am very good friends with lots of dentists. And I know the dentist will tell me that if somebody has been on one of those drugs like a Fosamax or a Boniva long term, they won't even clean their teeth.
Wow, because
they send them straight to an endodontist because they will all tell you or tell me that they have had people's teeth just fall out while they're cleaning them, just fall out of their mouth from the osteonecrosis from these bone drugs. So I think that a lot of these things that the drug companies are doing, it's mind blowing to me.
All right, I got one more.
Mind blowing.
Got one more. And I don't know the names of any of them, but there's a lot of immunosuppressant drugs that people are on for autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Crohn's disease.
Well, you don't know the names of them because there's a new one every week.
Oh, okay.
On TV.
And so what do these drugs do and what are the side effects of being on immunosuppressant drug?
Well, the number one thing.
Is that Humira? Is that one of them?
Yeah, Humira is one of the older ones. Okay. Yes.
What are some other
ones?
Well,
what you have to think of is, first of all, suppressing our natural immune system is probably not something we want to do, because when you hear the side effects of these things, you hear, let your doctor know if you're going to take any kind of vaccines or anything. Mm-hmm. Let your doctor know if you're going to travel outside the country.
Right.
Let your doctor know if you've ever had cancer. It increases the rates of cancer. It increases the rates of these things because it's suppressing our natural ability to fight these things. So you're more susceptible to any virus, cold, or flu that comes around.
That's very scary.
You're more susceptible to get cancer in your lifetime.
And people are on things like Humira for years and years.
Probably for the rest of their life unless they do something different.
And it's cutting out some inflammation, but in the long run, it's making everything worse.
Well, Janet, what it does is we go on the assumption, which is wrong, that the immune system is overactive. Okay. So these things just suppress the entire immune system.
Okay.
When there's actually, we'll call it three, I like to explain it this way. You've heard me do this before. There's three major parts to the immune system. There's Th1 and Th2, and then there's the regulatory immune system. And so just think of it this way. We have a seesaw, okay? I like to explain it like a seesaw. So you got a seesaw here, and I don't know if people can see this or not, but anyway, you got a seesaw, and in the middle, you have the teeter-totter, I'll call it.
Yeah.
The teeter-totter is the regulatory system.
Okay.
The end of the seesaw, if we put two people that weigh the same amount, the seesaw will be in balance. That's how we want our immune system to work. The teeter-totter keeps it in balance. What happens in autoimmunity 99% of the time or more is because their gut is out of whack. 70 to 80% of the immune system's in the gut. One side or the other gets a fat person on it, and one side gets a skinny person on it. And so our teeter-totter is now
one side,
not level.
Yeah.
One side's way up and one side's way down. So what happens is those drugs come in and push everything down. When what really needs to happen is we need to fix the teeter-totter.
Which is
we need to fix the regulatory part, which starts in the gut, vitamin D, and we need to get both people on the ends the same weight again, or close.
Right.
And so rather than suppressing the immune system, our idea is to build the regulatory part of the immune system up so that we can get that balance back. And so that way you reduce the risk of all these things, bacteria, viruses, flus, colds. You reduce the risk of cancer versus these expensive, extremely expensive, usually injectable drugs that are literally, taking years off your life. If you think about it. I mean, look, the cancer rates are skyrocketing, and now we're going to take drugs that increase the rates of cancer, that decrease our vitamin D, which is the number one way to fight cancer. I mean, it's really, Janet, it's really tragic in my estimation. And they come out with a new one. Literally, it seems like every few months there's a new commercial for a new one that suppresses your immune system for, I don't know, psoriatic arthritis or skin conditions or, whatever it is. It's tragic that we see this when all most people need to do, and we've done this with thousands of people, is balance the seesaw. Just balance the immune system. and it'll take care of itself in most cases.
And then there's a ripple effect where it starts to take care of everything else, our hormones, our gut, our immune system, everything gets better. It's funny because of this podcast, it must be getting out there because I got a picture of a prescription, was it yesterday or day before, from someone in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me this and said, "What is this?" And so I just forwarded it straight to you. And I'm like, "What is this?" And your response was, "They just need progesterone and magnesium."
Yes.
And basically it was medication for migraine.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm sure
migraines are alleviated with the right magnesium, like our OptiU 5 organic salt magnesium, in over 83% of the cases with magnesium versus that drug with all those side effects, 398 side effects on average. And then, because it was a female and because of her age, progesterone, bioidentical micronized compounded
right
progesterone.
Kind of progesterone.
I need to be clear on this. It's amazing for it. So magnesium and progesterone will fix the headache without the drug. But of course, the standard of care is to give the Imitrex, right? And now we bill them, 50 times what an Imitrex cost us. And literally these hospitals and people, they buy these drugs for absolutely nothing. And then they charge $4, $5, $6 for an aspirin or a Tylenol per pill. And if you don't believe me, get an itemized bill the next time you go, and you'll see it. I tell this story a lot, but it's absolutely true. Not only are these drugs toxic, and dangerous in most cases. When my wife had our children, I asked for an itemized bill because we were paying out of pocket. We didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
And I got the itemized bill, and it had all these Stadol for the pain, and it had Tylenol and Docusate sodium for constipation and all these things on it. I called and I said, we didn't get any of this. She didn't get any of this. I'm not paying for any of this. When you fix it, I'll pay the bill.
So you asked them not to give it to you proactively.
Oh yeah,
and then they put it on there anyway.
We didn't take anything.
Yeah.
She did it without any pain meds, without anything.
Beth's a rock star.
Well, she's tougher than I am. So anyway, yeah. So she did that, and we didn't use any drugs at all. Nothing, no pain, no nothing.
Did they take it off your bill?
And she said, "Oh, honey, she got all that stuff. You didn't realize it." And I said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "We are both compounded pharmacists. I assure you, we didn't get it, and I'm not paying the bill until you fix it." So there were things on there like a Docusate sodium that literally cost them maybe half a penny, and they charge like $10 for it.
Yeah.
Tylenol, $10 for it. They literally pay a penny or less per tablet, per capsule. So that is like the standard of care package for a woman having a baby, or comes in with a situation like you had, or goes in like my son did. And so they just bill for stuff that you don't even get, and they bill outrageous amounts. And so our entire system is based off running the bill up, I'm afraid, and not always about the health of the person that's there.
And we know, some of the other ones that are popping up in my mind while you're talking are Ambien or any kind of sleep meds, and then drugs that they give kids, Ritalin and Adderall, things like that.
Well, if you want to ruin a kid's sleep and appetite, by all means, give them an amphetamine like Adderall or Ritalin.
And what about adult sleep with Ambien?
Well, Ambien, you can certainly use Ambien for sleep.
Increases your
risk of death from all causes. So that sounds like something I want to do, right? Mm-hmm. That's a side effect. If there's ever been one, increases my risk of death from every single cause. When what do they need to sleep in 99% of cases?
Magnesium.
The right magnesium. And if that doesn't work, we'll add L-theanine and melatonin. But 99.9% of the time, we get the person sleeping without Ambien. So those drugs are extremely dangerous. They're extremely common. They're extremely abused. They're addictive because those drugs actually, I know you're going to find this ironic like I do, but the Ambien type drugs, actually deplete, guess what hormone?
Melatonin,
the sleep hormone. So they literally are addictive.
Makes no sense.
It does if you're the drug company,
yeah.
Right? So it's not just Ambien that depletes melatonin, no, Janet. There is, I don't know how many Americans are on drugs like alprazolam or Xanax or diazepam or Valium or clonazepam or Klonopin.
So anti-anxiety?
Yeah, benzodiazepines, anti-anxiety.
And they're
drugs.
addictive?
They're addictive, and they all deplete melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
So they all interfere with sleep. Now, they deplete way more than just melatonin. That's just the start of it. So now you need 4 Xanax a day or whatever, or 4 Klonopin a day, or 4 diazepam a day, and then you need Ambien to sleep. And so you are bombarding yourself with these things. And then you have 25% of American women are on antidepressant today. So I want you to think about all the side effects and all the drug nutrient depletions.
What are some antidepressants?
Well, we would have Prozac, Zoloft, or sertraline, those type drugs.
When my hormones started to change and I went to a doctor, I was having hot flashes, and the first thing she did was prescribe Prozac.
Yep. So standard of care for that, Janet, is horse estrogen, pregnant horse urine, and an antidepressant because you're depressed because of the hot flash.
And then I was more depressed because I gained weight and felt horrible.
Well, yeah, women won't stay on it long because they understand what it does to them after taking it. But here's the thing. There's a new one, though, so I want you women to listen because it's really important, called Vihoza. I believe is how they say it. Vihoza. Vihoza. Yeah. Now, this drug is a non-hormone treatment for your hot flashes. Okay?
Non-hormone treatment for hot flashes.
They make a big deal about how there's no hormones in it. It works in the brain. It blocks a receptor in the brain.
And then would that be hormones, night sweats? I mean, hot flashes, night sweats, any of that stuff.
So guess what's the most common side effects? Guess what the Vihoza drug company lists?
Hot flashes.
Hot flashes and hot flushes.
So the drug you're taking for hot flashes will probably give you more hot flashes?
Well, that's what the drug company tells me. And they go on to tell us that it can really create liver issues, and we need to have liver tests done every 3 to 6 months to make sure that we're not destroying our liver. Now, here's the really tragic part of this. Bioidentical compounded micronized progesterone will fix the hot flashes only 100% of the time with 0 side effects, but stronger bones, stronger heart, stronger brain, stronger immune system, more fat burning, stronger thyroid health. You know, I mean, you go through the list and you go, why do we need Vihoza again that causes more hot flashes? Is one of the most common side effects of the hot flash corrector, supposedly. So you have to understand the drug companies, I'm afraid, are doing this as an annuity.
We're being gaslighted.
We really are getting bad information from debunked studies when you go through them and really look at them. And
manipulated studies.
And a system of approval that is manipulated because they're paying the bills. And they're all buddy-buddy working for each other, one place or the other. So we really need to think how to get out of this system, Janet. And it's not hard to do. These are lifestyle choices, and we can help people overcome all this.
Great info. And scary.
It is, but I love these Ask episodes.
I do too. So stay tuned for the next one.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for all that wisdom.
See ya. Bye.